we will, I hope that's ours, Mary. And we're really excited to kind of share an update of everything as we close out kind of the first phase of the agenda and to get feedback about the next phase of the agenda. So I'm going to put that link in chat while we hear from Matthew. So Matthew, welcome to the 9:30 call. Um, I saw you at your recent Somerville, New Bedford Summit in Somerville, which was great. And you told us about some of the work that you're doing, and we would love to hear an update. But first, introduce yourself and tell us about you and how you came to be in your role.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Amy, and thanks for the opportunity to come and talk a little bit about the work at Peabody House. But to start, I know some faces on the call, but most people I do not. So my name is Matthew Caughey. I'm the executive director of the Elizabeth Peabody House. You can probably tell from my accent that I'm not from Massachusetts or Somerville. I grew up in Northern Ireland. I started as a teacher. I was teaching middle school and high school, particularly especially special needs classes. And then I went into youth work. And so I work with kids age 5 to 25 around education, literacy, personal development, and some diversionary work, some kids that were getting involved in the post-conflict mess in Northern Ireland and getting involved with paramilitary gangs. And so we did some diversionary work with some of the older youth at the youth club. And so I came to the States in 2017. People always ask me what brought you here. I met an American and she had to come home. And so I followed her to the States and we just happened to land in Boston the week that I moved out. She had gotten a job in Boston, so we were in Alston and in Somerville. And so I've done a lot of most of my work has been around uplifting low income communities. And I've often thought and felt that I do my best work in the communities that I live. And so I live in Somerville. And when this opportunity to join Peabody House came up, I jumped at it. And so it's a different age group than I'm used to working with. The early education piece was not something that was particularly in my background, and so I thought it was a good opportunity to really work with the youngest kids, and see what we can do to promote high quality work in Somerville and do those interventions and educational interventions at a younger age and see what kind of impact I could have in that work. And so I'm very happy to be there. I've been there about 2.5 years now. And so we're doing a lot of great stuff, which I'll share about one project in a moment, but that is me.
I'm also noticing all the Somerville slash Elizabeth Peabody House support that has appeared on the 9:30 call. So it's great to see everybody. So yes, tell us more about what's going on.
Yeah, so there's a lot of great work, but the one piece that you and I have been chatting and Titus have been chatting about was the work bringing in youth into the early education ecosystem. And so it started about a year and a half ago when we went through some transitions with staff members and we had some people leave. We had a particularly high turnover. We were looking around thinking, well, how can we fill this gap and how can we make sure the quality of the educators we bring on board are what we need them to be? And we came to the realization that if we weren't able to hire them, that we would just create them ourselves. And so we started a very small kind of pilot initiative to bring on two 16 and 17-year-olds during the summer for the school age program. So we hired two assistants. And so that went great. They did a really great job. They seemed like they were really had that kind of magic sauce. They were interested in kids. They were really great with the kids. The kids looked at them as near peers, although they were older than their age group, but they had that really strong connection with them. And I will say that the caveat to that is actually all of the young people we hired in this effort all came through Peabody House's program. So whether it was preschool or after school or both, they all had some kind of connection to the programs and the kids and the community. They all live in Somerville, and so they have that generational, and some of their families have an intergenerational connection with the work. So that was the lens with which we decided if we're going to do this, let's do it properly and let's be intentional about it. And so that was the criteria. We said, do the kids we bring on board have a connection to the work, have a connection to the community? Are they in the community, and do they have the kind of right potential to build a career in this field? And so we did that. We hired two people, two kids, as they say, in 26 or 16, 17-year-olds in 2020, summer 2023. They're still with us. And so what we did then, in that we kept them on for the school year, which I think was a great idea. They originally came on board for the summer. And so
Mm,
we integrated them into all of the professional development we're doing. So they do all of the same. They get an observation every month. They get two one-to-one check-ins. They do SMART goals. They attend all of the available professional development. And so we're really making that investment in them as the future educators of our community, to say you're worth the investment now, so that in the future you have the skills to be a high quality instructor and educator. And so last school year we decided that we would roll that out across our other programs. And so we brought another 17-year-old, so that rising senior or senior, in for preschool. And so and then for toddler in February, when we opened up our toddler center. And so now each program has one dedicated slot that's a part-time slot because the kids are still in school.
right.
One dedicated slot where they come in the afternoon, they're an assistant. Um, and so we hold those slots. We're building it into next year's budget. And the beauty about it, I think, Amy, for us, is the kid that's in, I shouldn't call him a kid, the youth that is in preschool actually did the vocational track in Somerville High. And so she is working towards being a teacher, an early education teacher. And so the goal for her is to get her up, to get her credentialed, and then she will hopefully stay with us and fall into a full teacher slot. And then that opens up that assistant slot for the next young person to come in and get some exposure to the field. Um, and the same with toddler. So we have a kid who's a youth and toddler who is going back to college, community college, to get their dental hygienist certificate. And so we are working with him to identify, is there space in his day to do the credits, the educational credits that he needs while he's at community college, to have that as an option should the dental hygienist stuff not work out, that he can continue
Right.
in this field. And again, that's good for us. It shows a very intentional commitment to not to the youth of Somerville. It shows an intentional prioritization of creating high quality educators for our local ecosystem. And it also it ties directly to our mission of helping families thrive, right? Because these kids all now have an income, and a regular income that they can
Right.
bring back to their household. And they're getting, two of the kids came from Market Basket, so they were very excited to quit their Market Basket jobs. But I'm not running down Market Basket, because it's a good place to work,
Right.
but we're actually giving them real tangible skills for whatever their career looks like for the future. And they're getting exposure to what it means to be reflective practitioner, what it means to be in a culture that is supportive of your development and growth, and all that good stuff that
Yeah.
we're working on as a culture and an agency. And so all of that is good for them, so that they can see what a work environment can really be at such a really young age. And so we're very excited. So we're hoping that at least two of those youth will stay on and eventually go into full-time work as educators in our programs. And then that opens up those three dedicated slots for the next cohort basically to come through.
And so you said that they were part of the Peabody House. How, and talk a little bit about the benefits, not just to the students, which it sounds incredible, and love the thinking about kind of this intentionality about being at a culture of, supporting professional development. But what does it look like day to day in the classrooms?
Yeah, so I mean, there are different expectations on them because they are assistants and they're not qualified, but um, in after school, I'll use the example of the school age because that's a better, slightly more advanced model, because that's where they started. And so like that kid, the youth that are in there, they have enough time to be group leader qualified or certified once they graduate next week. And so
Okay.
that shift changes. So right now they can't lead groups, they can't be left on their own, they can't be unsupervised. And so we've been doing the work now for about a month to get them ready to lead a program by themselves. So um a lot of work on like modeling best practice, looking at how do you facilitate a group, like all the things you
Yeah, right,
people get when they're have a traditional education background, right? So that he has the skills ready to jump in next week and lead a group and take kids to the park, and do all of the understand all of the EEC requirements around
right.
safety and compliance and all of that.
Yep,
And so it's a lot of like leg work on our part, if I'm being honest,
sure.
we need to get them ready. But the thing that I see the most and the thing that makes it absolutely wonderful and worth the investment overall is the joy that they have and the fun that they have and the levels that they have with the kids that live and go to school in their own community.
Right,
Just amazing, right? You can see the love and care they have because these kids are kids in their neighborhood.
right.
And it really takes it, for me anyway, to that kind of next level. They're not here just, they're here for a paycheck, obviously, but they're also here because they care. And that comes out every day in how they play with the kids, how they talk to the kids. And there's a little bit of work on that end of it too, about like making sure you're not friends with the kids and you have those professional boundaries and
Right.
all of that stuff, because those lines can get blurred, right?
Right.
Um, but that's the work that we're doing on our end to make sure they understand the difference between like you're here as a professional and you're not here
Yep.
and their neighbor. But it is truly remarkable to see the the connection that they have with the kids because they are the kids and were the kids in the program.
Right. Amy Eisen has a question. This is an inspiring model and seems like it could be replicated. Which teachers do the mentoring 2 times per month, and is it a lot for them to take on?
So yeah, we're fortunate, Amy. Thank you for that question. We're fortunate that we have a staffing structure. So every program has a program director, and then above the directors, we have the chief of staff and then myself. And I know not every center is fortunate to have that level of admin support. And so it's the directors themselves that are actually the coaches and models for these young people. So it's the most experienced people in each program, really, that are providing that coaching and mentorship.
And then what support do you give the teachers that are doing the mentoring? Do they have different kinds of supervision or the directors?
So yeah, so we're fortunate in Somerville that through the SPYC program that all of our preschool staff receive instructional coaching. And so every teacher in that program then is able to pay that forward for these youth, right?
Right.
Our toddler program is hoping to enroll in the ECSO program so that there'll be mentorship and coaching
Yeah.
at the toddler center. And then for after school, we're thinking that through with the OST. There's an OST task force, like what was professional development look like in that space. But to support the directors in being able to do this reflective work with everybody, we also have worked with a consultant that provides direct mentorship, leadership coaching for all of
Yep.
the directors. And we're figuring out then for the admin piece. So we're putting our money where our mouth is because like I'm also on a 3-year transformational leadership program that I'm covering
Oh,
myself that works with people from Northern Ireland / Ireland, Israel, Palestine, and the US. And so we're a global cohort of grassroots, what they call grassroots transformational leaders. And
yep.
so we're trying to show this idea that like we all are reflective practitioners and we've all got work to do, and that kind of filters down to every level.
We often say the 9:30 call is the inspiration that we didn't know that we needed. And I'm certainly feeling that today. Can you tell everybody else also about the Peabody House, like all the programs that you have? You sit in Somerville, that's a CPPI community. We've heard recently about kind of all the collaboration, but tell us a little bit more about all that you're doing at Elizabeth Peabody House.
Yeah, so primarily we run 4 programs. So our toddler center, which just opened in February, has 2 classrooms. Our preschool has 2 classrooms, and then we have an after school program for up to 52 kids. So we're licensed across the board for up to 110 kids a day. And then we run a food pantry or food bank or whatever you want to call it. that serves about 350 people a week, 350 households from our building. And typically about 10 to 20%, depending on the year at any given time, about 10 to 20% of our families in our childcare programs access that food pantry. But we do a lot of other fun stuff. Like we're building out a maker space and on site so that we can bring maker education to the kids and do it in a fun way. And we're using this model of training up youth to actually create another system for that work and try and figure out how we can train young people to be maker space and maker education facilitators in their own community.
Can
Um,
you give a little bit of a quick sentence description of what a maker is for folks who
so
might not know?
So yeah, maker space is like what you see is like the maker labs in high schools where it's got 3D printers and laser cutters and vinyl cutters and all that good stuff. We're doing that on a smaller version. So we've got a 3D printer, like cardboard cutters, laser printers, soldering irons, and we've got it set up so kids can come and just explore what it means to
Make.
make exactly. It's like the concept is like around creating 20 future ready skills for kids and encouraging kids to think about creating and making and innovating as something that's accessible for everybody.
I'm just gonna go to the chat. Great model to build a pipeline. This is from Kim Davenport. We work with our vocational chapter 74 ECE programs, high school in a similar way. Titus said, so innovative and intentional, building the pipeline for the next generation of educators, one youth at a time. Thank you, Matthew. And Titus added, and rerouting young people from retail jobs back to our field. Kim adds, it's wonderful that you have carved out funds in your budget to invest in the pipeline, and many high school students do need work to bring home a financial contribution to their household. Edna shares, wow, Matthew, this is impressive how these young adults have the support, professional development, and incentive to hopefully find their calling in the early education field. Donna Danette shared, your dedication and passion are palpable. Thank you for this work. Investing, and Donna also added, investing in administration is the path to quality. Ashley shares Matthew's leadership, passion, and dedication to helping build a robust early childhood ecosystem in Somerville is rare, and we are beyond blessed to have him in Somerville. Thank you, Matthew, and the EPH team for everything that you do and continue to do. Allegra shared, we have some teens at my program too, and it has been wonderful this year. We have three of them who are in college now and are returning for the summer and now are certified. However, I feel discouraged that EEC is requiring any new assistant teacher to complete the Strong Start training prior to entering the classroom, and I'm very worried that this will hinder our work with teens. And then Donna adds, it's also challenging with the subs and some are only OST. And then Nicole wonders, do the teens work at home-based or center care or both?
For us, we only have center based, so
Right.
they're center based.
But it is interesting to think about the model of the support and the kind of the, the like you said, like the kind of intentionality about if you're gonna do this, let's do this properly.
Right.
And I think it's also like teens are competent and capable, even though sometimes there's a different narrative that we hear, and kind of giving them that opportunity. What advice would you have for folks? Because I think, you think about Somerville, you think about this collaboration that's going on. But even this idea that the teens are coming from their own community, which can be hard. It can be hard to find people.
Right.
So, what advice would you give to communities who are thinking about something like this?
Yeah, I mean the lessons that we learned, Amy, and thank you for that question, are like make sure that you're clear about what you're trying to accomplish with it, right? We spent a long time last year, maybe about a year and a half ago, creating specific like responsibility documents on like the role. So what does this role look like? What does it mean for an assistant to be in our space? Like
Right.
can they reasonably be expected to do and how can we hold them accountable? Especially when they're so familiar with other people and families in the center, right? And so that was very helpful because that was part of the orientation was to be able to say these are the things that you're expected to do. These are the ways we're going to hold you accountable, and this is what we can promise you in terms of support. And to be able to make that clear to people was really, really important for us, so that we could have that level of professionalism, but also do right by the kids.
It's also just good practice, right? Which sometimes is hard to do when you're feeling like you're in a crisis and you got to get people in classrooms and every day children and families are, showing up and you want to make sure that you have the appropriate staffing and some of these things can be hard to do with the intentionality, with all good intentions, but just like we are need to get people in, which is why maybe figuring out this, like, what do you have to be done before you are in a classroom? You can understand why. And like, where's the flexibility of if we're going to make this investment and make this pledge is that we're going to do it. It might look different. It might not be the first day. Allegro shared, I was a 16-year-old who was offered an after-school job in a child care center and it changed my life. Brian Goldshare, the intentionality is so critical and shines through. Thank you for sharing. Kim Davenport wonders if you'd be able to share the job description, and other
Yep.
people were thinking about that.
Yeah,
So
for
we
sure.
have a follow-up folder for the 9:30 call where we put things that come up. So if you send it to me, I will add it. And
Yep.
as we've been doing our weekly emails about the 9:30 call, like Neri has added all the recordings from the week before, and we'll also, continue to highlight all the materials. The 9:30 call follow-up folder is an incredible history of the past 5 years of slides and presentations. Um, can you talk a little bit about the collaboration in Somerville? And
Yes.
oh, wow, that who just asked that question? Amaris, thank you for sharing. What support for infrastructure does the city of Somerville offer you, which may or may not be available to other towns and cities?
Yes, and so I mean, there's so much I could say about the partnership and collaboration in the city of Somerville, but what I will say the CPPI partnership and the SPYC as we call it locally and colloquially, the Somerville Partnership for Young Children. It really has helped us in terms of the work that we do. Two things as I see it. One, well, three. One is like to really think about what high quality means for our work
Yep,
and for our space, and then to be able to actually work and walk journey alongside professional coaches and mentors to actually think that not only just think it through but implement it and test it and assess it has been a game changer for the work that we do. Um, and then I think that the support that we get through the itinerant team, right,
mm, yep,
really does make a difference in terms of like what the space feels like, how the kids show up in that space, and how our staff are able to support each kid wherever they're at, right?
right,
And I think that has, for us anyway, reduced an awful lot of potential burnout of
right,
staff. And I think that piece of it often goes unspoken,
yeah,
but you can see it every day, right? Or you can see it when it's not there, should I say. It's
right,
hard to see when it is
yeah,
there, right? But you see it when it's not there. And the other piece of it then is really being a partner and thinking through what does the city need, who's the best place to fill it, and let's think about how we collectively can make sure it's filled. And that was how the toddler center came up. Like it was a conversation
oh wow,
between Kathleen and Chris Hosman, who's the summer promise director, and thinking through like what does the city need. This space that you'll see me behind, this is our new toddler center. We've only got one classroom open. We're working on a room for the second classroom, but it was an old family shelter that closed down, and then daycare center took it over. It lasted 1 year in the space and shut down unexpectedly. And so the opportunity, we weren't looking for a new space, we weren't looking to expand, but the
right,
opportunity was so good, and there was such a need, identified need for toddlers specifically, that we decided
right,
we decided we try and help with that. And that piece of it, I think you don't see every day, but like that level of interconnectedness that like we were able to really think through with our city partners and our school partners, like where can we best focus our energy,
right.
and then they helped us make it happen, right?
And I'm sure like it helps not to feel alone. That's a big undertaking, right? Especially around toddlers. But we also know the need is so clear. Kathleen added in chat before you said all that. We love partnering with Matthew and EPH through the Somerville Partnership for Young Children. EPH has a deep commitment to families. It's a place where children grow, families feel supported, and foundation for lifelong success is built. Um, so it kind of, we're so glad that you joined us. Can you say just a minute about your own leadership journey and kind of what you have found as being part of this cohort, this global cohort?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, the one thing that jumps out at me is this the school, they call it School for Leadership, but the thing that we focus on, because the school is totally set up on the ways that we speak and listen to people, and how that creates space for leadership. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to create spaces where people can be seen and heard and fully appreciated. And I think that has allowed us to look at possibilities and opportunities in a way that has been impactful, but also deal with real challenges as they come up in a way
Right.
that is compassionate and caring and thoughtful in a way that I probably would not have done before I started on this work of reflecting on my own leadership.
As we wrap up, I just love for 9:30 callers to add some love and appreciation in the chat for you. We will send you the chat. The other news I just wanted to share is the House yesterday voted on the supplemental budget, which the commissioner talked about last week, needing funding for FY25, which is what we're in. So that is great news that the House passed that. It is now sitting in the Senate. The Senate is also continuing their budget process just for FY26. So there's a lot happening in Massachusetts. Danielle also talked about the bill at the federal level, and the budget did pass last night or early this morning. So Danielle's coming back in June, so we'll hear more early in June. We'll hear more about that, and we'll share more on the 9:30 call. But please, everyone, join me in thanking Matthew for joining us. And this is like how the 9:30 call gets booked. I saw Matthew at an event. Titus told me one thing that he had learned, and the next thing you know, here we are at the 9:30 call with, as we said, the inspiration that we didn't know we needed. So, Matthew, thank you so much for the incredible, and please come back anytime and give us an update on the Toddler Center
I
and all
will.
the teens.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for holding this space for me. I appreciate it.
Excellent. All right, we will not see folks on Monday. We are closed for Memorial Day. We'll be back in action next Tuesday. Thanks so much and have a great day.